o'clock, so let's get going. Welcome from the Election Advisory Group. I'm Kathy Barney and my co-chair is Robin Adams. And the first thing we'd like to do is recognize our team because they do a lot of work behind the scenes and nobody knows who they are. So can I get the Election Advisory Group to just come up here for a minute? You'll have to wade through all these people.
Okay. First we have Kathy.
Hello?
We have Jerry Owens, Sue Bundren, Doreen Dale, Patty Show, and Joan Zaluska. And
So we're going to walk through quickly the ground rules for this meeting. Pretty simple. Robin's going to do that. Then we're going to take a couple of minutes and just kind of do some housekeeping items.
okay. So first of all, if you wouldn't mind, if everyone would just turn off your phones or put them on silence, we would appreciate that. Secondly, the coffee service is turned off in the back until after the meeting. All right, so we've got questions that were received in advance of the meeting will be drawn randomly from this poll. And the audience questions are also possible. Please raise your hand and a postcard will be handed to you and your question will be in the rotation. So we've got the EAG back here. So if you have a question you want to ask, raise your hand and they'll give you a number. Okay? Every question will have a 2-minute time limit once it's read. And the last thing we have here is civil and professional language is required. Okay?
Not too bad. I'm the shortest person here, so I have to keep making this mic down where I can reach it. So you're probably wondering why there are not 2 candidates here tonight instead of 1. So we see our candidate Stan right here, who we are going to hear from a lot tonight. Our other candidate, Joan Crenshaw, life kind of gets in your way sometimes, and Joan reevaluated where she was at and decided that because she's lived here so few weeks or months, that this was just not the right time for her to run. She may choose to do so in the future. So our only candidate will be Stan. So what does that mean to you? Does that mean you no longer have to vote? No, you have to vote because legally we require a 25% quorum to make this a valid election. So please, if you hear anything from myself or Robin or Stan tonight, it is vote. And just so you know, we have some blank proxy forms in the back if you forgot to bring your proxy, and you can vote tonight and put it in the box. So with that, I'd like to introduce Stan Trask, our candidate, and Stan's going to give an opening statement, and then we're going to begin with questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Nice to see everybody here tonight. The girls told me I was limited to 3 minutes for my opening statement, and I was thinking last night after I prepared this and got through practicing it a couple times, I thought, you know, it's really kind of sad that you can recap your whole life in 3 minutes. But as Kathy reminded me, when you're up here, standing here talking, 3 minutes is a long time. So, but without any further ado, I'll go ahead and start. I'd like to thank you for being here tonight. This is a very important meeting. I'd also like to thank the Ovation HOA Board for holding this town hall meeting, and the Election Advisory Group, specifically Kathy Barney and Robin Adams, for their help throughout this process. Finally, I'd like to thank Steve Bay for his service to the community for the last 4 years, and his willingness to stay and help train his successor for the next 4 months. Thank you, Steve. My motivation for running for the Ovation HOA Board comes from wanting to give back to my community. I've always had a strong sense of community no matter where I lived, and I have a big desire to make a difference in the community where I live. With that, I believe you all should have received a copy of my bio, so I'd like to fill in a few details tonight why I feel I'm qualified to serve as your homeowner board of directors representative. Before I do that, though, first I'd like to introduce my wife, Madeline. Some of you know her as Billy, and that's another subject for another time, because that's way too long to talk about tonight. She's right here in the front row. Stand up. Thank you, dear. And I'm proud to say that we'll be celebrating our 53rd wedding anniversary in April. We have 2 daughters. One lives with her husband in North Bend, Washington. The other lives with her husband in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm a veteran. I served 6 years in the United States Air Force following my graduation from high school. During my 50-plus year career in the retail grocery industry, I served as a store manager for a local grocery chain for 11 years. During this time, I went back to school nights and weekends and earned my bachelor's degree in business administration, and continued on to earn my master's degree in business administration, or my MBA. And the knowledge and skill set I gained from my education gave me the confidence to be successful in all my future endeavors. Following my store manager position, I bought my own chain of grocery stores and successfully operated them for over 15 years. My last position in the grocery industry was 11 years as president and CEO of a retail grocery co-op with over 150 stores in Washington, Oregon, and Alaska. During my 11-year tenure, the company grew from 46 stores when I took it over to over 150 stores, and I'm very proud of that. During my career, I had the pleasure of serving on 7 different boards, 2 of which were HOA boards, one in Peoria, Arizona, and one in Maui, Hawaii. In closing, my promise to you is, if elected to become homeowner representative to the HOA board, I will never forget my fiduciary responsibility to you, being fair, honest, objective, and transparent in all my interaction with the homeowners of Ovation. I will always keep your best interest in mind, because your best interest is my best interest. I'm a homeowner as well. Thank you for being here tonight, and I'd appreciate your vote on February 25th. And I think we can move to questions.
Questions, here's your first question.
My first question, okay, let me change gears here.
Okay, and I put the number right there.
Oh, okay, number 20. We've got a little numbering system here, so bear with me while I look up that number on my notes. Okay, so the question is, have you investigated whether you would have oversight into future contracts with the contractors and vendors, which is inclusive of all services employed by the HOA? And my answer is yes, I have investigated that. As published in the job description for the board member director, essential duties include, and I quote from the description, review and/or approve financial invoices, vendor contracts, and payroll. Okay, the next question is, fairness is always at the heart of most conflicts. Here's an example of a situation you may encounter as a board member. How would you handle this situation? You received a complaint from a resident that had their ACC request denied, The basis of the complaint is that another resident had a similar request approved. Fair question? First, I would check with the ACC for the reason for the denial. Then I would advise the resident that pursuant to the ACC standardizations, each application is considered by the ACC based on the standardizations and that may apply, and the individual circumstances of the situation are also considered. I would further advise that the prior approval of a similar situation has no bearing or has no guarantee on approval of the original situation by the ACC. I would also advise that residents may apply for a variance from any standardization to be considered as outlined in the Oak Tree CCNRs, and also the Oak Tree bylaws contain a defined appeals process that they could also look into.
Before we do that, can we make one comment?
Sure.
I'm not sure if you heard Robin. If you have a question, these were pre-submitted, raise your hand and we will get you a number so that, okay, so we have a question up here. We'll intersperse those throughout.
Okay. Okay. I think, sir, you had a question?
Well,
We'll come back to that right after this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the next question is, how should a board balance transparency with confidentiality? A board should clearly define what information is considered confidential and communicate those boundaries openly. They should always share as much relevant information as possible while protecting sensitive details. Board executive sessions and designated channels should be utilized, ensuring that only those who have a need to know have access to the private information. Lastly, all stakeholders should be informed as to the rationale behind confidentiality decisions.
Okay, do you want to go with this gentleman here?
Hi, my name is George Axtell.
Hi, George.
You've worked on a couple of HOA boards in the past.
Correct.
Have you worked on a board that was still controlled by the developer?
No, I have not. In both board situations I worked on, both were in the early 2000s. The one in Peoria, Arizona, was in complete control of the homeowners, and the one in Maui, Hawaii, was also under the control of the homeowners. The declarant was out of the situation.
Did everybody hear the question?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So the question was, in the two HOA boards that I've worked on before, have I ever worked on a board that was under declarant control still? Is that correct? Okay. And everybody heard my answer? Okay. Oops, I'm gonna read that 1 second here. Sorry for all the paper shuffling here. The question is, do you support strong enforcement of the Ovation CCNRs? And my answer would be absolutely, yes, 100%. The HOA documents, including the CCNRs, as well as the bylaws, rules and regulations, and the individual committee guidelines, maintain community standards and preserve the integrity of the community, thereby, in my opinion, adding to the value of each individual homeowner's home.
Any questions?
Any other questions right now? If not, I'll proceed. Okay, the next question. When working in a team setting, are you more of a leader, a mediator, a collaborator, or a listener? And my question is, or my answer is, excuse me, I would consider myself a leader who listens. I believe the job of a leader in a team setting is not to just dictate a solution to the issue, but to listen to all members of the team and lead the team towards a solution that will be best for the organization And that solution may not be what the leaders' originally planned outcome was. I'm kind of looking in between for hands, so if you have a question, just make sure you raise your hand. Okay, so the question is, are you here year-round? Do you have any commitments that would interfere with your ability to fulfill the requirements of this position? And my answer is, I am here year-round, with no commitments that would interfere with my ability to fulfill the requirements of the position. However, we do spend a couple weeks a year in Maui, and while away, I would have full access to phone, text, email, and Zoom calls, where I'm able to conduct business as usual. And just as a sidelight, when I had my last position as president and CEO, on several occasions, I would go to Maui for a couple weeks, and I would come back. The chairman of the board knew I was gone, knew I was on vacation, but we would have board meetings while I was there. We would have things come up while I was there that I would handle. And when I came back, I would have board members say to me, "You were on vacation? Where were you? I thought you were home." You know, so they had no idea I was just sitting in Maui on the laptop. But you know, fortunately, they didn't see the ocean in the background. So. Okay, the next question. How do you approach problem solving and decision making? I've always felt that to assess risk and benefits, you need to identify potential outcomes, evaluate their likelihood, understand their impact, and balance them against rewards. I've also used what is called a SWOT analysis in the past to achieve similar results. And for those of you that have not heard of that term, a SWOT analysis would evaluate strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
We're moving right along.
Moving right along here.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Oh, they have a question
We
still.
have a question in the very back.
Okay. Let me get some shuffling papers here. then.
loud and
It's Donna. Donna.
Yeah, come on up.
Going back to your availability, how will that work with, the homeowners in terms of, will you be meeting just so many hours, one day a week? Will you be available by email, telephone?
So you're not, so you're asking a question of what will my availability be if I was a board member?
Yes,
Okay. And access for the homeowners, correct?
yes.
Okay.
And I realized that Steve had his own reasons for not accepting phone calls or emails. But it was a little bit, disconcerting to some of us I was concerned about the people in our community that still work and couldn't see him between 11 and 3 on a Thursday, you see what I mean?
Okay. Okay, so has everybody got the question? Want me to repeat it again? No? Okay. So I don't want to step on Steve's toes here because if elected and I become the new board homeowner representative, I need to work with Steve for 4 months and in training. But one of the things that I believe I would do as one of my first priorities would be to increase the number of hours that I'm available for the homeowners. And I think in this neighborhood, meeting with the homeowners the first Thursday of every month from 11 to 1, I believe it is, I see no reason to change that. I would like to add another time onto that the same day because we have people in this neighborhood who work. They may not be retired yet, and I would like to see a time slot added on for maybe like 5 to 7 or something like that at night, so they could come and ask their questions and we could chat. So, not set in stone yet, but I definitely would be interested in adding to the hours. that homeowners could come and chat with me. And also, would probably develop something that we could do with appointments, if it wasn't those hours. Okay? Okay, the next question is, what steps and actions have you taken to acquaint yourself with the history of, the workings of, and the culture of Ovation and Oak Tree community? Okay, so I kind of viewed this as actually 3 different questions all wrapped into one, so I'll kind of go through them one at a time. Regarding the history, since moving to Ovation in 2024, my wife and I have learned of the interesting history of Ovation at Oak Tree and its original purpose as a farm from 1945 until approximately 1995. Through a series of transactions, the property was acquired by Taylor Morrison to build homes. During this time, a habitat management plan was developed to preserve the native oak trees and the 40-acre nature preserve. This resulted in the history of the property being included in the design of this entire project, and gives the homeowners of Ovation, I think, an amazing amenity that they'll have for years to come. And I would like to thank Eleanor, Ovation resident, for her great informative article that a lot of my information came from. So thank you, Eleanor, for that. As to the culture, I have had the pleasure of meeting many of my neighbors, and I've learned that we have residents in Ovation that have different cultural and geographical backgrounds. I believe it's important to continue to offer lifestyle programs that will meet the needs of our residents and celebrate our differences and celebrate what we have in common. And as to the workings of the community, since making the decision last fall to run for a position on the HOA board, I have immersed myself in the material available on the NOVA portal, including the bylaws, the CC&Rs, existing committees, budgets, and reserve funding accounts. So I believe I'm well versed in everything HOA at this point in time, except for what Steve's going to teach me. Okay, the next question, if I don't see any hands. Proactive communication with the many residents of the community can be challenging, however necessary to enable you to effectively represent the residents. How have you handled communication with a large independent group in the past to effectively represent the constituents? So in the past, I've always tried to be proactive in communicating important information to a large group. When I was president and CEO of my last job, we had, as I mentioned, 150 stores. In those 150 stores, we had 150 owners, 150 managers, about 400 department heads. So it was a pretty extensive group that we had to communicate information to on a daily and weekly basis. This was accomplished by having the constituents supply their preferred email address for this type of information to be included on an email group, kind of a blast email, if you will. And especially with the owners, sometimes there would be sensitive information that I would send out that they didn't want sent to the store email address. And in that case, we had a private email group for the owners that we could send that information to. So again, it's important that we keep confidential information confidential, and so that's how we handle it. Oh, yeah, okay, I remember that from this morning. Okay, the next question is, did you create a strategic business plan for your company? Did you implement it fully, and were you financially successful? So 3 questions all in one. So I would tell you, yes, for both my own company and when I was president and CEO of the large grocery co-op, we had a strategic business plan that I helped develop. And it was fully implemented, and we did an annual review of that plan. In both cases, the plan was a 5-year plan, with an annual review. And it was implemented under board direction and with the assistance of the board. And both companies are still thriving today using that same strategic process. The next part of that was it implemented fully? Yes, absolutely. And then thirdly, were you financially successful? And I would just say to that, yes, very much so in both situations. So, yes, sir.
Well, you might as well just stand up.
Just stand up, you're good.
Okay, my question is, I love your background in retail. Because it's gonna be very important for you going forward. And of course.
Maybe you could stand up, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure.
talk speak a little louder.
I love your background in retail, simply because it's gonna be very important in managing, or being an HOA board member. You've already been exposed to all of the functions of retail, being ops, being president of ops and so forth, all the way down to warehousing. When obviously there's 3 divisions, as you know, there's gonna be 8, there's gonna be 5 more. When you went into one of your stores, who did you walk with to review the store?
Okay, I'm not sure I heard all that. So.
Okay. So the question was, when you went to your stores to do a walkthrough, who did you walk through with?
Okay.
Did I repeat that?
Is that, so the way I'm hearing the question is when I owned my own stores for that 15-year period, and I went to those stores and I walked the store, who did I do the walkthrough with? Is that correct?
Correct, and say your warehouse manager brought up a important subject to you. And it was important to your chain of stores. And you were talking about, obviously you know the profit of your store, your entire chain. And how would you relate that to his important function or his opportunity to create a additional thought to you?
Okay, I think I understand the question.
operation.
Okay, well, let me take, there's 2 different questions there, so I'll take them one at a time. First of all, when I went to my stores to do a walkthrough, I did an overall walkthrough with the store manager, or if he or she was not available, with the assistant manager. Then I would do a walkthrough with each individual department manager and have them tell me what was happening in their department, any problems they were having, anything I might be able to do to help them. When it comes to the warehouse, we did have a warehouse representative that called on my chain of stores. And usually that call would of course start with me, but when they did call on us and had important issues that they wanted to convey to our stores, I would accept that information. We might walk the store, we might talk about whatever that issue is in the store, and then I thought it was always important that every week I would have a staff meeting with my stores to convey anything that's come new information or come to light in the last week and things they need to know. And all department heads and store managers were at that meeting. Okay, does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
That's kind of a 2-part question. First, when's the price of eggs gonna come down?
When's the price of eggs coming down?
That's the first part.
Well, let me answer the first one first. If I had the answer to that question, I'd still be making a heck of a lot of money working for somebody.
Second part, a little bit different. When we had the vote in here to raise the HOA fees, there was an opportunity to ask questions. And I asked a question about why is our insurance so high? And the answer was, your 3 minutes are up, and we'll get back to you. And of course, nobody on the HOA board got back to us. So that's my calculations with my insurance agent is approximately from last year to this year, about $80,000, which equates want somebody from the outside in, not just the same old voice to give the cop bad hog, as they say.
Okay,
Do you have,
If it is doing that, that's what I want to know.
that's a statement, not a question, by the way, but do you have
You
a
want to make a
question?
statement?
No.
No.
Do you have a-
Yeah, I think I've got an answer for him, if I understand the question correctly. Yeah, I'm not sure I can repeat that completely, but it has to do with insurance on the budget. Is that correct?
And the civilians.
And, yeah, on the pavilion, on the villages and the pavilion, and the cost of that insurance on our budget,
Yes.
which equates to a dollar amount of the dues just going towards insurance. So, first of all, I would tell you that I'm not going to be able to give you a good answer on that tonight, because I haven't had the chance to research that. I haven't had a chance to talk to the board about that. But if elected, one of the things that I would do is I would, first of all, ask you to send me that question in detail. Once I get my official board email set up, send me the question, and I will promise you that I will research that and personally get back to you on why I believe the rates are what the rates are. But stating here tonight, I don't have enough information to be able to tell you why the rates are what they are, and if I even tried to come up with an answer, it would be just a wild guess.
They are what they are. What I'm asking you is, are you committed to tell Dale Morrison you want transparency?
Okay, I hate to cut in, but one question, you've already asked it, so if you need to ask another one, raise your hand and we'll get you another number. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, there's a question way in the back, but you might have to come up front here so I can hear you, and then I can repeat it.
My name is Kelly, and I am concerned that the prior experience you have on the HOA board, they were already established. So you had a board. Here you're gonna be on your own. And Steve Bay can attest to you that it can get a little tricky, thank you, with lots of different opinions. How are you ready to handle a single, by yourself, on the board representing us?
Okay, I'm not sure I got that right.
Okay, she's asking because you would be the sole board member. How are we gonna manage all of that? Because it's very difficult to be.
So Stan's not gonna be on the board by himself, right? He's on the board with me as a homeowner. This is we reach,
For 4 months only, right?
but then we get somebody else to replace me.
Oh,
So this is that halfway point in our neighborhood, when we reach 50% of homes sold, that we get 2 homeowners on the board.
Okay, I'm
Right.
sorry.
So, but I get what you mean. It is true that being a homeowner board member, whether it's the one, me, or the 2, me and whoever is elected, is somewhat of an advisory position because the majority of the votes are still held by the decorate, okay? But he's not gonna be there by himself.
Okay, what he said.
Still tough.
Still tough, still tough.
Okay,
Thank you, Steve.
is that it? Thank you, Steve, appreciate that. It's exactly what I would have said. Okay, any other?
Okay, why don't you go?
Okay, here we go with another question from the. Oh, this is a good one, I like this one.
I'm good.
I got a great answer.
You do?
Yes, I do.
You sure read it out loud.
Okay, the question is, can you discuss a time you helped a board or company navigate through a challenging period? In my last position as president and CEO, I led an investigation between our company and another group out of the Portland area on the possible of a potential merger of the 2 groups. I would say while the talks between the 2 boards started off being somewhat confrontational, and I wrote that and I thought, I'm not sure confrontational is the right number, right word to use. In our first meeting, papers were thrown across the table at each other, a lot of 4-letter words were yelled and screamed out, and both boards left the meeting in about 5 minutes. So it was about a 5-minute meeting. So it was my job to try and repair all the damage that had been done. So anyway, I was able to help the two sides find common ground through a lot of discussions that led to discussions on how the merger of the two groups, taking the boards out of it, but how would the merger of the two groups be in the best interest of the retailers that each group represented. And finally, after a lot of discussions, both sides eventually agreed that the whole was greater than the sum of its parts, and the merger was completed. So a lot of work went into it, though.
Good question. Okay, we'll do a picture for a minute.
Okay, any hands up yet? Yes, we have one over there.
Could you get a number, and we'll take you next?
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead?
I'll finish this one, then we'll get to you. Thank you.
So somebody's coming to you.
Okay, what do you see as your top 3 responsibilities as a homeowner representative on the HOA board? Okay, and these are not necessarily in any order of importance, but I think all 3 are in the top 3. First and foremost, budget responsibilities. Working with the Budget Advisory Committee on a monthly and annual budget. And I think that's, from what I hear tonight, that's a hot button issue with a lot of people, and that would be one of my top 3 responsibilities. Number 2, to many homeowners, their home is one of, if not the largest asset they have. As a member of the HOA board, we need to protect the value of that asset by maintaining community standards, HOA guidelines, and the integrity of the community. Ovation is a very desirable community, and homes here are in high demand. As such, home values should continue to increase, which is good for all of us as homeowners. Number 3, I believe that we need to maintain a healthy reserve funding account through an annual reserve study and monthly contributions to the reserve funding account, which are part of your monthly assessments. This will greatly reduce the possibility of a one-time special assessment. And for those of you that are in the know of what a special assessment entails, believe me, it's something that we don't want to have to do. But anyway, a special assessment to fund repairs and maintenance of the HOA assets. This has become a major hot button issue in a lot of HOAs throughout the country, excuse me. And then I have one more, number 4, because I think this is equally important to the top 3. And that's, I believe, is being a strong voice representing the Ovation homeowners on the Ovation HOA board. So.
Okay, so do you want to take his question next?
Yes, please.
Let's go back to the walkthrough again.
I'm sorry, you'll have to go back.
I want to go back to the walkthrough again. You mentioned, when you own your stores, you walk with 3 important people right off the bat, and then you had a sub walkthrough later on with the department manager and so forth. My question is, as an HOA board member, you will have innovations. You obviously have the budget committee, you have a landscape committee, you have the garden committee. And you also have the welcome committee. And there's a wealth of knowledge within those clubs and within those committees, and they've had vast experience. To tag on to your experience, when you will be walking for the community, the divisions, would you want other people walking with you to educate you more or to inform you of the different aspects of what is occurring out there in your walk?
Okay.
What needs to be, as a HOA common area, what needs to be addressed?
Sure, got it, I think so. Okay, so I'm going to try and repeat that. When I was in my company, I would walk the stores with different managerial type people, whether they were store managers or department managers. But in an HOA, and especially as it applies to Ovation, we have a lot of different committees. We've got an ACC, we've got a landscape committee, we've got a budget advisory committee, we've got an amenities committee. And how would you deal with that as far as working with those committees? And I would start off by telling you right now that, and I think the gentleman mentioned that there's a wealth of knowledge on those committees, and I would agree with that 100%. And to not use that knowledge and not to seek out guidance and advice from all of those people in those committees would be foolish, in my opinion. I would want to sit down with each committee, find out what's going on in their committee, what their problems are, what I can help them with, walk the community with that committee, and then take their advice for problems and what I need to take back to the board for the committee's recommendation. So, does that answer the question? Okay, thank you. Okay, next question is, what makes you the best candidate for our board member representative? Well, I guess the fact that I'm the only candidate might have something to do with that. But I know that's probably not a good answer, so maybe I'll just expand on that a little bit. I feel my knowledge of advanced management concepts, knowledge of budgeting and financial statements, and my background of successful leadership of large organizations, I believe that would benefit the Ovation HOA Board. Boy, Kathy, at one point tonight I had this all organized. It's got out of order in a big hurry. Here we go. Okay. Next question. What is your perspective on importance of diversity and inclusion on a board? Can you give an example of how you promoted diversity, equity, and inclusion in your past roles? And that's a great question. I think a board should be made up of a group of individuals with diverse backgrounds. That's number one. During my career, I've always hired, worked with, and promoted all kinds of people, including women, people of color, and those with disabilities. During my last position as president and CEO, I had women in 3 executive level positions in my company, including Director of Human Resources, Director of Accounting, and Executive Director, which was the number 2 position in the company. Upon my retirement, I recommended to my board that they fill my position with the current Executive Director, which after an intense candidate search by the board that took about 3 weeks, they finally accepted my recommendation and hired that gal for the top role. And I'm happy to report that that was 4 years ago. She's still there, still doing a great job. So. Okay, the next question is, one issue of concern among many homeowners is the ever-increasing cost of our HOA fees. The 3-year history of HOA increases of 14.5% in 25, 3.5% in 24, and 16% in 23, which were all well above inflation rates. What strategies will you employ to keep HOA fees from increasing at rates beyond what homeowners and fixed incomes can afford? And that was a question that was sent to me in advance, and I have to tell you, this was one of the questions that I really had to give a lot of thought to, because at this point in the election process, since I have not been officially elected yet, and I hope to be officially elected, I've not had the opportunity to sit down with the Ovation Budget Advisory Committee to get an overview on the budget process that they follow on an annual basis. So I need a lot more information before I could comment on the past increases and this year's increase that you've seen in dues. But having said that, I can tell you that I would agree with their stated fiscally conservative approach to the budget process. I can also tell you that in my inspection of the current 2025 budget, there are a number of items in our budget which the HOA has little, if any, real control of, such as insurance, taxes, and to some extent the reserve fund contribution, which is regulated by 2 different RCWs in Washington State, an RCW being a revised code of Washington. So I can't give you a better answer than that tonight, but what I can do is commit to you that if I'm elected, I will work with the Budget Advisory Committee to develop budgets that keep controllable expenses as low as possible, thereby keeping potential increases in your monthly dues as low as possible.
But we have more.
We have more?
We have more.
Okay, keep them coming. We got time.
There's also a question though.
Oh, any more questions? Oh, here's a question.
We have another,
Right there.
oh yes, Pam.
Hi, when you were talking about the 4 things that you found most important, number 2, you mentioned keeping our property values up by maintaining the integrity of the property.
Yes.
When I was on past boards of HOAs, we, as the board members, our board members together, as well as whoever our management company representative was, and when we had a declarant, we would have a representative with them. Once a year, we would walk our property, and we would make note of different properties, of issues that had to be done. I mean, as they aged, of course, was anything from painting to, you know, the roof getting moss on it or whatever. And then that list of things would be sent to our management people, and they would send the letters out. So it wasn't coming from us, the homeowner,
Right.
coming after our homeowners. It doesn't appear to me, maybe it happens here, and I've been here a little over a year, that there is anything in place as to who is responsible for looking at those infractions to the CCRs, and how is that approached, and how does that happen, and how do you feel that should happen? Because as a homeowner, you don't wanna go knock on your neighbor's door and say, you're supposed to do this. You know, like, how does that get enforced, and how do you see that as a board member to be enforced?
Okay, great question. I can tell you that my opinion would be that as a member of the board, at least one of the board members should be involved in walking the neighborhood at least on an annual basis and looking at conditions along with the appropriate committee member, whoever that may be, whether it's landscape committee or ACC committee. The board members should be involved in that. Was there a second half to that question?
Well, because then the management company would send the letters out.
Yes,
They would
and
give them a period of time, you have 90 days, you have 6 months, or whatever, to, you know, paint your house, or get the moss off
Yeah.
your siding, or whatever. Because, if there is an enforcement here, I'm not sure where it's coming from, or who does it, because,
Oh, okay.
I see the same things over and over again, and in order to maintain that integrity and those property values, that is something that needs to be.
Yeah, okay, I understand now. So, does everybody understand the question? Everybody heard it? Okay. So, I believe that right now, the infraction letter, or violation letter, if you will, comes from, obviously, either the ACC lets the board know, and the board will contact NOVA, and NOVA, I believe, sends out that letter. Is that correct, Steve?
There's a lot more to it.
A lot more to it, but in a nutshell, that's how it works. In the past, I'm not sure what the policy has been. Again, I haven't been in office, so to speak, to be able to learn these things yet, but I do know that in the past, we used to have 2 people, Takara and another person, and both of those jobs were kind of put together into one position, and Takara's been, quite frankly, buried a lot of the times. So I'm not sure if it was her responsibility to go out and walk the neighborhood or not. I don't have that information yet. But I do know it's important to do that. And if I'm elected, I will make sure that I understand what the policy is and make sure that happens. And if I'm elected, I would like to be part of that process. Just as an aside, I can tell you that for those of you that have ever lived in a community that don't have an HOA, which Billy and I have been in several of those communities, and we've always been very, very proud of our homes in those communities, and we take great pride and ownership no matter where we live. And there's nothing worse than being in a non-HOA community and having your next door neighbor think that appropriate building materials is chicken wire and blue tarps. And no HOA to back you up, or no rules and regulations to change that. So it just destroys the value of the community and in your home and all the other homes in the community. So I think, again, it's extremely important that we maintain standards and the integrity of the community. So
This is your last question.
I've got this one here first.
Oh, okay. Oh, just a minute, well, hold on, we've got,
I'm gonna have to stand up because I can't see these. We've got a question back there and a question here. So do you want to take the gentleman in the back there?
Yeah, 1 second, let me find, I just need to find this one, I shuffling papers here.
So we're gonna go with you, if you could speak really loud.
Okay, there's a question about the compliance. Isn't there a little compliance card that goes around and does a little secret spy thing?
compliance card, they're not here. So you should probably just.
So
I think the question was, that it used to be a 360 compliance card, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, unfortunately, I'm not aware of that. Maybe it was before my time moving into the neighborhood. And according to my sources here, they said that doesn't exist anymore. I see Steve standing up, so Steve?
Yeah, so we want to be careful the questions don't get too much in the weeds for somebody who's not presently on the board. These are great questions for you to ask on the board or come to me during my office hours for. We do currently use Compliance 360, a man-powered, rather robotic video, and we review violations. We review 90 to 120 minutes of video every 2 weeks that is taken by that car to look through that by a disinterested, objective third-party vendor, comparing that against our governing documents, and then we can find the violations. The violations are then recommended by that company. The board reviews them and says, no, that's obviously not one. Yes, you're right, that is one. So we have some control over that, and we have some say over whether or not that violation is given. So that's occurring. But in the wider sense, if we could just avoid the questions that, that somebody who's running for the board or who isn't into the weeds on the board yet wouldn't know yet. And when this person is elected, or if you come to my office hours or again after the portal, but we are using Compliance 360.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Steve.
Okay?
Go ahead.
There's a question here?
Yes. I know Steve, over the years, has been on the board for a long time.
Steve told me too long, but when I met with him, but.
I don't know what the term you are expecting, but how long are you committed to serve?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's my understanding that the term that I'm running for would be, quote unquote, an approximate 4-year term. I was told that this term should take us up to where the declarant removes themselves and the build out happens and it's all over and the community takes over. So, am I committed to that as long as it takes? Absolutely 100%. I knew that going in.
Thanks. Do you want to make a
Last one.
closing statement? No, we're out of time. Do you want to make a closing statement?
Yes, absolutely.
But I think they're done.
So
There's questions throughout.
okay, so we're kind of running short on time. where is the other question? Oh, that guy over there? So Greg Varney? So I guess Greg Varney wants to ask a question.
I had to come late, but if you covered it, please excuse me. What is your feeling on transparency and how you advertise your bids and the results of those bids? And we as HOA members can receive how you advertise and what the results are.
So he's asking about, okay, so in preparing the budget, what is the transparency of getting bids and sharing them? And again, I think that you can answer.
Okay, so I think the question was, in preparing budgets, what is the transparency in getting bids and sharing them and putting the budget together? Is that basically in so many words? Okay. It's my understanding right now that the budget process, again, and I'm gonna say right off the get-go, I'm not on the board yet, I haven't had the time to get involved in the budgeting process. But from what I read in the Budget Advisory Committee guidelines, the budget process starts with NOVA taking all of the current billings throughout the year, figuring out what the bids, the increases are going to be, making a recommended budget to or your starting budget, if you will, to the Budget Advisory Committee. And then the Budget Advisory Committee does their thing and massages that and recommends that or turns it over to the board for final recommendation. Now, if that's not the exact process, I'll let Steve jump in, but I don't have enough information to tell you whether I think that process works well or not. I believe it does work well. And I know we're short on time here, but just as a personal thought, I think the Budget Advisory Committee has one of the most thankless jobs that we have. They put in a lot of time, a lot of work, not just once a year on the budget, but monthly. And I honestly believe they are doing what they believe is in the best interest of the community, based on the information they've been given by NOVA. And I look forward to working with them. So
we can take one more question. Okay, so Linda?
Well, I don't know anything about CEOs or boards or anything, but I know about school principals, and good ones really get out. They like everybody. They like to know the kids' names. They chit chat with the custodian and the kitchen help and stuff. So do you see your position as a people person, or does that matter? Will you be out and about? Will you be in the preserve? Will you be in our neighborhoods, kind of walking around and meeting us? And
Yeah, you've kind of answered this already, but are you more of a people person? Will you be out in the neighborhoods walking?
okay. I guess the question is, and I'll paraphrase here, so please tell me if I'm wrong, but the paraphrase is, are you a people person and will you be out in the neighborhood and trying to meet the neighbors and learning what their questions are, what their problems are, that type of thing? Okay. So as I mentioned, my intent would be to increase the number of hours that I'm available on a monthly basis, and also offer access by appointment. I also would like to become more involved in the community gatherings. If there's a gathering for the Loopers, which I'm part of, or the Alley Cats, where Kathleen is part of, I'd like to at least in the beginning stages invite myself to join that group for their function and just be there, to answer questions and meet everybody. And okay.
So we are going to start wrapping it up. Stan's got a final statement, but somebody made me aware that a few people came in late and did not hear the reason why we have now one candidate instead of two. So I just want to reiterate that Joan Crenshaw evaluated her candidacy and realized that she hasn't been here long enough. She's got other things that she is committed to, so she withdrew. So what does that mean for all of us? Does that mean you don't need to vote because we only have one candidate? No. it means you still need to vote because we need a 25% quorum to make this a legal and valid election. So I just wanted to make sure, right after Stan's final statement, please join us. You can continue chit-chatting with Stan in the back, have some cookies and a cup of coffee or even a bottle of water. Hey, thank you for coming.
This will be very short and sweet because she just said there was cookies back there and I haven't had dinner yet. So I'm looking forward to a cookie. And my wife will tell you I'm one of the biggest cookie monsters in the neighborhood. I would just like to say thank you for being here tonight. I would also like to thank the Election Advisory Group for their role in this process. They've been invaluable. I believe my past business experience combined with my education, knowledge of budgets, financial statements, make me a strong candidate for the Ovation HOA Homeowners Board. Also, my promise to you tonight would be that I promise to listen. My mom always used to tell me that God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So I promise to listen and always have your best interest in mind. So with that, thank you very much. And I'll be around for the cookies. So